Okay, always remember to mute the stream. Okay, just give it a moment. I need to check if the sound is working. Okay. Okay, that's very low. Let me see if I can make this a little bit better. Probably that's as high as I can go. What's wrong with this thing today? That's very low. See if I can make this a little bit better. Okay, that's probably should max it out or near about. Let's see. So if I talk normally, it does not seem to hit the peak, which is good. And just put it a little bit under that. Okay. Just give me a moment. I'm gonna start the thing on Facebook as well. Man, I don't like the mobile Facebook. Probably should max it out. Okay. Let's see, filter. Okay, I'm just gonna change the filter of the audio as well. Minus 30 dB is probably too extreme for it. Okay, so how do you use that thing again? I really don't like this thing. Okay, so where is everything here? Seriously. Weird. Page, yes. Okay, so I can't see on Facebook where you can create a post. Did they remove that because it crashed recently? I mean, through the phone. I mean, I don't see any way to do that, which is pretty odd. Ah, okay, found it. So it's like the tiniest of boxes. Should be a bigger box. All right, so let me see. App. Live. Probably have to. Ah, man, autocorrect is annoying too. Okay, it should be this button. Play video. Okay, that's kind of strange angle. Okay, it should be live on Facebook as well, except that I forgot to turn on the microphone, so that's not gonna help. One moment. Okay, now it should be all set. Okay, I'm gonna give a few minutes for people to join in if they want. Today is gonna be... Okay, I still don't understand why the volume is so low. Doesn't make any sense. I think so. Properties, filters. Okay, just get rid of it. Just one moment, because I'm figuring out the thing here in OBS. So I thought I set it all up, but of course it has some stuff. So today, anyway, I'm just waiting for the audio to catch up. I'm going to talk about philosophy a little bit today, so it's going to be different. Usually I talk about climate change. Just one moment, because I'm figuring out the thing here in OBS. So I thought I set it all up, but of course it has some. Okay, I think it's fine. Anyway, I'll be able to figure it out later, I guess, in post. So yeah, just make it a little bit less even. Okay, there we go. That's a bit better, and it is coming from here. So yeah, anyway, today I'm going to talk about a little about philosophy, argument validity, argument soundness. I just see a little bit, but it's on this side. Okay, argument validity, argument soundness. I'm going to explain quickly what that means. I'm going to talk about the Gnostic positions and atheist positions, and I'm going to talk about a video where this guy talks about validity a lot, but for me validity is just not enough. So I will try to show why in this show. So just give a few 1 or 2 minutes for people to drop by the video, drop by the chat. Unfortunately, because Facebook melted last week, a couple of days ago, I couldn't really boost my last show until yesterday, so that's a bit annoying. If I don't boost it, then nobody watches it, so that's the reality of things as well. Yeah, it's a bit too high, isn't it? And I should probably lower. Really strange sensors on these machines. Sometimes they don't detect the temperature. It's really quite hot in here right now. It should be in standby mode. Anyway. All right, well, why don't I start? There's a lot of things going on today. I have the tablet here, so I wish I had 4 hands. It would be totally easier to manipulate everything, but of course I have to deal with 2. All right, and just before I start, I was just reading that there was some kind of mosque shooting in New Zealand, and it was caused by white supremacists. And of course, they're getting a lot of support from, their people. So white supremacists, of course, support each other. That's the big kind of unfortunate thing in this world. So anyway, we'll have to see what happens, but whether it's still, I don't know, it still kind of comes from religion, of course, this sense of white superiority. Maybe, it doesn't mean that these people go to church, but it just, this whole kind of aura, the atmosphere. Okay, and I can see that on Facebook, on YouTube, sorry. The video is freezing, which is very annoying, because that's what I use to edit later. So the question is, why does it do that? Come on, I don't have time for this. Well, I'll just have to keep an eye on it, I guess. Anyway, feel free to comment during the show. I will try to keep an eye on YouTube and Facebook. Because I'm doing a visual show, it is easier if you're watching the YouTube version, so that you can actually see what the F I'm talking about. Otherwise, it's kind of difficult. But anyway, of course, in the edited version, you'll be able to see everything. Okay, and I just need to grab today's date. It's March 15th. Okay. All right, and well, yeah, we'll go from here. So, 3, 2, 1. Hey everyone, it's JC, and welcome to another exciting episode of Age of Reason. I should probably redo that. It's always bad to stumble on the first sentence. Hey everyone, and welcome to Age of Reason. Today is episode 42. It's March 15th, 2019, and I'm going to talk about philosophy today. It's going to be about argument validity, argument soundness, and then I'm going to review a video of a guy who, I don't know, I haven't seen, of course, most of his videos. It's just one, but in that video, he talks a lot about argument validity, and for me, validity is just not enough. And for people who are interested, well, first of all, you can study about it on the internet. I took an online course from Duke University, which was very, very thorough, and it was about 3 months long, and it went through most of that stuff. So I passed it with distinction, which I'm proud of. I got like 98% or something, but you know, don't take my word for it. I mean, that would be a argument from authority, and sometimes that can be a fallacy as well. So anyway, just discover it for yourself. Find out what it means. I will do a very quick course on that, so I'm probably ignoring 99.9% of the entire philosophy field, but it's just for the context of this video. So first of all, there's a lot of fallacies that float around on the internet. So if you search around on Google Images, for example, you'll find that you know, there are memes out there, and they're just wrong, of course. That can happen very easily indeed. So, for example, this one, it says agnosticism is always doubt, always question, challenges you to think with logic and reason. And then it talks about atheism, and atheism is no doubt, no question, challenges you to disprove their lack of belief. And that's just not true. I'm sorry, but I'm sure some people can justify this in some way, but it's just not true as far as I'm concerned. And as I mentioned a couple of shows ago, people love to redefine terms these days. It's become a pastime, a hobby for some people. And so some people redefine it this way. But to me, it makes absolutely no sense whatsoever to do that. So what do I mean exactly by argument validity and argument soundness? What does it mean? What does agnosticism mean? What does atheism mean? So first of all, I have an image here, and I have a series of images actually. They're very similar, but they're just, you know, shown in a different way. So here we have agnostic atheist, agnostic atheist, and agnostic theist, gnostic theist. So you have to understand that Gnosticism has to do with knowledge. It's a position based on knowledge. And theism, and that's based on a position of belief. So that's not quite the same thing, of course. And if you notice on the diagram, Gnostic basically means claims to know. So agnostic theist, for example, is for me kind of the worst kind of theist, because first of all, they believe in God, and secondly, they claim to know that God exists for sure. You can see, in fact, in the picture that these people there at the edge, they kind of walk. It's like these people who wiggle on the ground of a church, you know, or cry at the altar without any self-control whatsoever. It just kind of looks like it. The next picture is just the same thing, but it's a different way of representing it, and they introduce here the term of weak. So you can be a strong Gnostic atheist and a strong Gnostic theist, for example. Okay, I'm just losing the video in OBS, so that's very annoying. Just give me a moment here. I'm just gonna try to... I'm actually thinking it might be a CPU usage problem. Nope, it's not. Okay, just give me a moment. Display capture, no. Video capture device, there we go. Add a new one. Okay, I'm gonna cut this one. Okay, so of course I don't have any pen here. That's annoying. Just give me a moment. Just need to add this thing here. Okay. Oh, I see. That's the wrong one. Chroma key. Of course. Just need the numbers again. Technology 422-69155. 422-65-155. I can close that. Color correction is just saturation. Color correction. Okay. I don't know. It happened like a long time ago, and I don't know how I fixed it. No idea. So, okay, it is reset, so hopefully it's okay. I'm just going to redo from this slide because otherwise it will not make any sense. Okay, so this is just a different way of representing the same information. So here they introduce the term of... Hey, oh, no, you two, you stop. Oh, cats. Okay, so here it's the same thing. It's just a different way of representing the same information. Here they introduce the term of weak and strong. So you can be a strong Gnostic theist. You can be a weak agnostic theist. But okay, here we go. So for me, for example, this is already kind of too much information. First of all, I don't like labels. I don't like to be called an atheist or a theist. But we have the labels, so we have to deal with that. However, there's no need to overcomplicate your life. We already have so many laws that exist, so many rules we have to follow, and then you're basically creating these extra set of rules which are very much drawn in the air, and it's very kind of arbitrary. So anyway, I do not refer to terms like weak or strong. That's just personally my way of dealing with things. There's another diagram, and this one is actually pretty good because I'm just going to move a little bit to the side here. It says here in the corner, implicit atheism. I like that term because it says basically, I have no opinion, and you were born here. So we were all born implicit atheists. We claim nothing. And of course, you can see in the other parts, it's pretty much the same as the other diagrams. So agnostic theist, for example, I believe God exists and the existence is knowable. That for me is the most toxic form of theism out there. And agnostic atheist, on the other hand, means I do not believe in the existence of any gods. I don't have any knowledge of that either. And this is important because there is also a burden of proof, and I'm going to talk about that in a second. So, well, first of all, atheism, right? So a lot of people throw about atheism, the term atheism. The guy in the video I'm going to show you defines it in his own way. That's very interesting. So he defines it his own way, and then he proceeds to give examples to basically explain a fallacious position. But for me, atheism is quite simple. It just means a disbelief or a lack of belief in the existence of God or gods. Pretty simple, don't have to demonstrate it because the burden of proof is not on me to do that. I'm not claiming that God does not exist. I'm just refuting the claim of theism that God or gods exist. That's all. Just one moment. Shit! You always have to play at that time. It's incredible. Can't do it earlier. Okay, so now we go to the burden of proof, and basically the burden of proof, a very basic explanation, is the obligation to prove one's assertion. So what it means is that if you're claiming that God exists, you have to demonstrate it. It's basically you have to prove a positive claim. So again, as an atheist, I don't claim that God does not exist. Then I would have to find a way to demonstrate it. But I'm just refuting your claim. Your claim is the original point, and that's very important here. So I prepared a quick slideshow here. There we go. I don't know if this will work, but okay, I think it works. Good. Except that it acts as a mouse sometimes as well, which is not good. All right. You can find all the stuff on the internet. I'm going to do a very quick description here of argument validity and argument soundness. I'm going to give some examples for both. And I'm going to try to explain why validity is just not enough. It is just not sufficient. So validity means an argument is valid when, if all of its premises were true. That's an important sentence, this. If all of its premises were true, then the conclusion would also have to be true. In other words, a valid argument is one where the conclusion necessarily follows from the premises. It is impossible for the conclusion to be false if the premises are true. So the key word here is if. So we're not concerned with the actual reality of things. We're just concerned in the possibility. So validity deals with possibility. Is it possible that giving a certain amount of premises that the conclusion is true? Then we'll see. So here we have some examples, and the way that you represent an argument is this, but this is one form. You can use anything as long as you can explain it. So here we basically, these are the premises here, and we usually number them. So it's not necessarily in an order of importance. It's just to give them a kind of variable. So here, number one, premise one is all round things are basketballs. Premise two is the earth is round, and therefore the conclusion is the earth is a basketball. So giving these premises, the conclusion is actually valid. So that's what I'm saying. It can be absolutely insane, valid, sure, but absolutely not sound and not realistic. By the way, if you're doing this on a PC anyway, I'm not sure what it is on a Mac, but if you want this symbol, and this symbol with the 3 dots means therefore or in conclusion, you can do that by, I should say, holding Alt key. You hold the Alt key and you type on the numeric keypad 8756 in order, and release it, release the Alt key, and you'll have this symbol. Anyway, that's just a kind of aside. Here's another example. Premise one is all actors are robots. Because again, we're not dealing with the true things. We're just dealing with possibilities. So all actors are robots. Premise two is Tom Cruise is an actor, and therefore Tom Cruise is a robot. It has to be. If all actors are robots and he's in that category of robots, then he is a robot as well. Okay, next one. This one is pretty funny. So again, with validity, you can get some really funny ones. So I recommend you get online and you actually search examples of funny valid arguments, something like that. Number one is Jesus can walk on water. I can walk on cucumbers. Cucumbers are 96% water. Therefore, I am 96% Jesus. So again, it's really funny, it's absolutely ridiculous, and yet it's valid. Again, doesn't have much relevance in the real world, but it is mostly just to have your brain working, I guess. It's a good logic test to see what is valid or not. But that's about all it can do. So let's talk now about soundness. Now, this is important. Now, an argument is sound if it meets these two criteria. Number one, it is valid, so you have to have a valid argument. If it's invalid to begin with, there's no way it can be sound, okay? And of course, number two, its premises are actually true, so they have to be absolutely true and, real, like real stuff. I'll give you some examples. In other words, a sound argument has the right form and it is true. So here's an example, and it's very simple, of course. Premise one, Quebec is part of Canada. Premise two, Patrick was born in Quebec. Therefore, the conclusion is, logical conclusion, Patrick was born in Canada. And we know that this is true because Quebec is indeed a part of Canada, and we can find that Patrick was born in Quebec using his birth certificate or something like that. Therefore, the only possible conclusion and the only true conclusion is that he was indeed born in Canada. Here's another example. All monkeys are primates. All primates are mammals. Therefore, all monkeys are mammals. So arguments of this form are going to be valid and sound. And indeed, we can verify that monkeys are primates. All primates are mammals, indeed, and therefore the logical conclusion is all monkeys are mammals. And that's it for this slideshow. So let's jump into the video, and I'm going to stop it and comment when it's outrageously wrong. Let me figure this out here. There we go. Again, it would help if you're watching this on YouTube, because then you can actually see the video. But anyway.
Well, hey everybody. Hopefully this will work a little bit better than the last time. I'm still figuring out how to actually stream.
Okay, just gonna restart it to get the full screen here. And probably should double click that.
Well, hey everybody. Hopefully this will work a little bit better than the last time. I'm still figuring out how to actually stream to Facebook. I mean, I kind of got the gist down. I'm so used to doing streaming, obviously, on YouTube. But I use OBS and I use XSplit. I use actually streaming software. I just do regular Hangout. Now, I know there is a way to actually stream it to Facebook by doing that. But you know what? I haven't really played around with it. So I'm just going to do a live thing here. I have done a couple of them already. Kind of had mixed reviews. People that understood it, loved it. People that didn't, still working on them. So, I mean, you can only do so much. So this actually is one that I'll be doing on atheism and the burden of proof. This is going to be a kind of a Q&A session if you want to ask me questions, because this was kind of a couple of arguments kind of rolled into one. I've been in different groups trying to get people to actually provide a counter or a retort to this particular argument. Unfortunately, none have been provided any sufficiency.
I like what he says here. None of them have provided any sufficiency, but that's sufficiency for you. That's the thing. So you have to be very careful when you do these kind of videos on the internet, because people will attack you for Well, many things actually. People attack me for all kinds of things all the time. I mean, if I go on politics groups, for example, I get smeared as a Putin bot. It happens quite often. Just as long as I'm not in a with the mainstream media, then that's it. I'm already out of the category, and that happens to a lot of people actually, unfortunately. So again, when people define something, um, you have to be very careful because you're running in the danger of creating your sort of cult. You're at the top. You created your definitions there, and then other people have to follow your definitions, and that's a very tricky area for a broadcaster to be in.
Most of them are just met with memes. Oh, you're just an idiot, Steve. You have no idea what you're talking about. Just, basal stuff like that. What they people don't realize is that everything that I put forth in these groups, I've already ran through my own group, which is a group called the Rage Bait Community, which has about, I don't know, 60, 70 PhDs in that particular group.
Okay, but again, that doesn't matter. I don't care if you have 200, 300 PhDs in your group. First of all, I don't even know what you're talking about with them. Uh, and secondly, it doesn't make any difference whatsoever. Look, I know some actual climate scientists. I get a lot of my information directly from them or from people associated with them. And I mean, I don't see this thing. It's an argument from authority. Again, you're asking people to believe a certain group of other people based on their PhD. PhD is not God, you know. It's not the ultimate thing. A lot of Christian scientists who believe in absolute nonsense, they have a PhD sometimes, and they just spend a lot of time writing books. But that doesn't make them credible. Just because they have a PhD doesn't necessarily make you a credible person.
Including many well-known ones that you may know. People will verify these arguments at least, have some validity to them before I try to bring them on Facebook and kind of run it that way. So they're not like the things I just pulled my ass. Now, I understand people may not understand these concepts right away, only for the fact that they've been so ingratiated with this narrative that atheism is only a lack of belief, because that's how they're told through American atheism and atheist experience.
Okay, I just showed, that's why I showed a very simple description of what atheism means. It means a disbelief or a lack of belief in gods. There is no need to redefine certain terms. You can do that perhaps as a kind of hobby or something, but I don't see any reason why you would do that. There's other ways to spend your time better, I'm sure.
Which, by the way, I will be on the Atheist Experience Discord, the ACA Discord. What is what's the date? I think it's on the 13th. We decided. You know what? I have it here. Let me check my calendar. Yeah, so we have the 13th at 2 o'clock Pacific time, which is 4 o'clock Central. I'm going to be on the ACA Discord as a personality, YouTube personality that's going to be answering questions, stuff like that. And that's going to be kind of fun. I'm looking forward to that. I like all the people from the ACA. I've had numerous ones on. Matt Dillahunt has been on. Russell Glasser's been on. Jan People says she's going to be on. Uh, Eric has been on. So, well, he's actually talking. But anyways, let's get to the topic at hand. So, you guys are kind of curious about what I mean by.
By the way, people complain about my show that I ramble. How about this? Do people complain about him rambling? I wonder.
Atheism and the burden of proof. First, we have to establish what we mean by the burden of proof. Now, if you want to follow along, I've actually written a little bit about this on my blog. But in a nutshell, the burden of proof and the burden of justification in epistemology is the same thing. There really is no distinction to be had. In other forms of things like legal terms, then slightly there is, because you have what's called a burden of persuasion and a burden of reduction. A burden of reduction just means do you have something to actually enough to even come forth with a case or to dispute a case? And a burden of persuasion is do you have an evidential enough evidence to convince the jury or the judge? So if I have a persuasive argument, I'm actually going to be more burden of persuasion than anything else, but that's actually an evidential burden. when it comes to beliefs, because we're talking about things like atheism or theism. Theism is the belief that God exists. Atheism in philosophy is the rejection or negation of that claim, or saying that literally theism is false, that there is no God. That's what is in philosophy.
Okay, perhaps in philosophy that's what it means. I don't know. Again, I took a very thorough course on philosophy. I unfortunately they didn't really cover this topic in particular, but um, I just wrote it on my blog actually a few days ago, since he's talking about his own. Um, I was saying that philosophy these days doesn't have as much relevance as it used to have. So back then, sure, if you go back some centuries ago, you can find some philosopher scientists. A lot of them were. They started with some kind of idea and they pursued the idea. So it's more to do with thought. But unfortunately, since the advent of modern science, philosophy has really been reduced to basically just a bunch of people arguing about logical things. In fact, when I was in high school, my teacher said that philosophers make their money by arguing with one another. It doesn't mean that you can start with a false position. Then you can just argue your false position and make money that way, I guess. But again, I don't see any relevance whatsoever it has to the real world.
Now, I understand that groups like ACA and American Atheists will define it as lack of belief. Okay, whatever. My argument that I'll be having coming up here incorporates that. It doesn't make a bit of difference. Matter of fact, it actually relies on that other definition. So, the burden of proof is basically if I hold to a particular belief, I need to justify that belief to myself in order to have it be rational. All that basically means is that I need to provide enough sufficient warrant to say that my belief is rational.
No, you don't. That's the thing. Because it really doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all if you're just one person in a room. In fact, if you're the only person on the planet, uh, do you really need to spend time like justifying these type of things to yourself? Can't you just kind of accept certain things? So there is a category of people out there, and they literally question everything. Okay, and I think it's good to question things, but if you question literally everything every day of your life, then you must live some kind of paranoid existence, really, because I don't know, you cannot be at peace with any sort of information because everything is questionable, right? So no, you if you have a burden of proof, you have to justify it to other people. That's what it means. You have to justify your positive claim to other people. So if you're walking around the street and you're shouting that God exists and you're trying to convince people that God exists, you have to provide some kind of demonstration. If you can't do that, then I have absolutely no reason to believe you. And honestly, I don't need to listen to you.
How you do that, that's a long, complicated story. I'll have that in another video. I recommend people go formulate your epistemic framework, go look at what theory of knowledge you prefer, what theory of justification you prefer, what theory of truth you prefer. And there's a lot of them, and they're not easy. Not going to front. Theory of truth alone will drive you to drink. Um, but formulate what you think is a decent way to epistemically justify something. But the burden of proof in that situation is to yourself. It's not to somebody else. If you have nobody else in the room, you still have a burden of proof to yourself if you have a belief.
But it doesn't matter. That's the thing, because you're not affecting anybody else's life. If you're just alone in the world or in your room, you can believe in some really crazy things, and it will never leave the confines of your room. But once you step outside into the real world, yes, that's what it means. Burden of proof. You have to justify your positive claim. You can't just walk around and say anything you want and just want people to believe you. That's not how it works.
Now, if you have a dialectic and you're in a two-party communication, right, and I have an interlocutor, that burden will move back and forth between the two. It's not a static thing that people think, right? Everybody knows this mantra that, oh, if I have a burden of proof, if I have a claim, I have to provide a burden of proof for it. Yeah, everybody knows that, okay? That's just, we ridiculously basic. So we all know that if you have a positive assertion, you have to have burden proof. But in any communication between two people in the tolling method, each person will bring something to the table. Each person will bring a counter argument to the table.
Okay, they can bring their counter arguments all they want, but one person is still going to be. They could both be wrong, by the way. That's the thing. Both people in a conversation could be wrong. But if you're just going with a classic example, then one person will be wrong and one person will be right. So, again, if somebody comes to you, brings to the table that God exists, I don't have to demonstrate that God does not exist. The burden of proof is not on me. He's making a positive claim. He has to provide some kind of way to demonstrate it, and theists can't do that. Trust me, they've been trying for thousands of years, and they never ever demonstrated even the slight chance that a God exists.
One person will argue that the proposition is true. One person will argue that the proposition is false. Those each have their own unique burden of proof associated with them.
No.
So when we say burden of proof, we don't really mean we're proving something. Nothing is ever proven with burden of proof. It's an epistemic burden. It's a burden of justification. Unfortunately, the misnomer of the burden of proof has been conflated with it. It's kind of stuck. It's unfortunate. One of the things in philosophy that I hate, that things kind of just don't make sense. But it's not really a proof. There's nothing proven when you say burden of proof.
Okay, again, this we enter a territory of what I call a word salad. It's when you don't really know what you're talking about, and I think philosophy in depth is a very difficult field, and it's very easy to get confused or just, again, start this kind of word salad. And there are people who are experts at that. For example, conservatives love this Ben Shapiro guy, always quoting this guy. Okay, Ben Shapiro is a guy who is from the far right. He works for Breitbart. He's an anti-education guy, which is not surprising that, conservatives like him. And it's a bunch of word salad. Again, even a better example is Jordan Peterson, who, again, is a famous guy. I don't see why, though. Here's a guy who literally talks in ambiguous terms all the time. And he also claims that atheism causes loss of hair. So, I mean, how serious are these people really?
It's epistemic justification. So why is it that atheists, any type of definition, have a burden of proof? Okay, well, first of all, if you accept philosophical definitions of atheism, clearly you are making a positive claim. You're saying that theism is false. You're saying that ontologically, which means being, or in the universe, there are no gods. If I make the assertion there are no gods in the universe, that has a burden of proof.
Okay, but no atheists do that because we know that trap. We understand that trap, so nobody goes there, unless it's kind of to make fun of something. But yeah, like I said in the beginning, if you're making a claim that God does not exist, then you have to find a way to demonstrate it. Yeah, so that's very difficult, and we know that. Atheists know that. That's why we don't go there. We just don't. So the philosophical definition is great and everything, but I don't see how it's really relevant in the real world. Why don't we just go with real-world definitions and just kind of stop at that for now? There's no need to make your life more complicated than it already is.
Do I actually have to demonstrate there are no gods to meet that burden? No. Okay? It's absurd to think that you actually have to demonstrate something to meet a burden of proof. Because when you're talking about things like this, where you have a proposition, you cannot demonstrate one way or another whether God exists.
Okay, but then there's no reason to believe that claim. That's the thing. Yeah, so okay, you can't demonstrate that a God exists, then I don't have a reason to listen to you. I don't have a reason to believe your claim. That's it. We just move on to the next thing.
If that was that easy, then it would have been done thousands of years ago. So there is no burden to be had by a theist to prove God, and there's no burden by an atheist to disprove God. That's not how it works at all.
Oh, really? Well, that's very interesting because, we have to listen to your word here. We have to trust your word that apparently now theists don't have a burden of proof. That's very new to me. That's a very new idea. But again, uh, this is Philosophy 101. I can write my book right now if I wanted to, and I will be arguing for a certain set of things that could well be argued for, by the way. And this guy could write a different book, arguing for a different set of things. And in the perfect world, we would basically both be making money fighting against each other. That's how it would work.
The burden is, are you rationally able to justify your belief that God exists, or are you rationally able to justify your belief that God does not exist? Either way, though, if you assert that the proposition of theism is true, you have a burden. If you assert that it's false, you have a burden. I think that's kind of uncontested. I think that most people would probably agree with that straight up, right? So the question goes to then, well, what happens if you don't actually have a position on the proposition? For example, Gnosticism. Gnosticism is defined by the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy as the state of being psychologically agnostic on a proposition. And there's two ways to define something: there's propositionally or psychologically. There's actually more, but for this particular discussion,
That's not what it is. Like I showed in the beginning of the show, gnostic is a position of knowledge. So if you're agnostic, gnostic, I should say, you claim to know. If you're an agnostic, you claim to not know. That's basically it. Again, there's no need to conflate many things here. It's a pretty simple thing, actually. He says it's very difficult, but no, it's not. It's very simple. It's just people overcomplicate things all the time. I see it happen every day on social media and everything like that. So again, there's no need to do that, but some people do it. It's like their hobby or something.
there's two ways to define something. Atheism is not defined psychologically; it's defined propositionally in philosophy, meaning that it's defined to be the negation of theism. It has to do with a proposition, not the belief state, not in my mind that I hold a belief that God should not exist. Now, it ontologically means that. It ostensibly means that I have no belief in God. Because if you believe gods do not exist, that it entails that you do not believe gods exist, right? Makes sense, right? If I believe there are no gods, then I do not believe gods exist. One entails that. So the question is, if I don't assign a value to the proposition, right? And by the way, I am looking to see if people have any questions. I think I'm doing this right, so hopefully. Um, if I don't assign a value to the proposition, by the way, let me know if you can hear me in the live chat pretty well. I always do just things differently, and I'm using a different headset, so hopefully it'll come across pretty clear. But let's say that proposition is that at least one God exists. Okay, the theist says yes, that's true. They affirm that. They say, I believe God exists. The philosophical atheist would say, well, no, I don't affirm that. I reject that. And the rejection of that in philosophy is the assertion of the negation. So the atheist will say, I believe there's no gods. Now, if you want to go to the colloquial definition, which is I just don't believe there are any gods, let's do that. The agnostic says, I do not have enough justification to assign a truth value to the proposition. I do not hold that the proposition is true, and I do not hold that the proposition is false. Same thing with the gumball analogy, right? The famous gumball analogy is are they odd or are they even, right? Well, ontologically, they're one or the other. They're either odd or they're even, assuming a quantized state and all that. Basically, that you have full gumballs and stuff like that. But if they're not even, that means they have to be odd. If they're not odd, they have to be even. If one is true, the other's false. They're called contradictories. So if theism is true, atheism has to be false. And atheism is true, then theism has to be false. That's the dichotomy that's set in um, philosophy, right? And it's not even really a dichotomy because it has to do with beliefs, because beliefs are not dichotomous. I believe that the proposition doesn't even make any sense. I believe that I don't care about the proposition. So there's other belief attitudes you can have toward the proposition. But the agnostic says, hey, I just don't answer this question because I don't assign a truth value. I don't think that they're odd and I don't think they're even, right? Because if I had a gumballs right in front of me and I said, hey, Brian Greener, are they even or odd? He has no justification to say that they're even or they're odd. He has no way of knowing, right? He's not justified rationally to say, hey, Steve, they're even. So So the only real rational position that Brian could take, and you have to use you as an example, Brian, is that you're agnostic on the proposition. You do not have any justification either way, so you don't assign a value to it. That's what it means to be agnostic on the proposition. So the question goes, well, does that mean that you have a justification burden? Well, yes, I think so. In this particular case, the agnostic has the burden of justification only for the fact that they're not having a burden on the proposition itself. The theist has the burden that they're saying is true. The atheist has the burden that is false. Again, philosophical terms. Uh, but the agnostic, he has his own burden, right? I don't think an agnostic can get away with not having any kind of burden of justification.
Well, they can. Again, it's because you're making life more difficult than it is, and again, you're uh, clearly approaching things from only a philosophical point of view. But again, why don't we just address things from a real world point of view for once? It's nice to think. You know, philosophers are thinkers, but you have to put that thought into practice, into the real world. If it has no application there, then it's worthless. Your thoughts are worthless. That's just how it works.
That doesn't make sense. It's still a position of some kind. And the burden comes into this, and I do call it a second order justification. I've ran that by a few experts. They don't seem to have a problem with that because it's obviously not a first order. First order means it's on the proposition, right? If you believe it's true, you have a first order justification because you're dealing with that proposition. But if the agnostic says that I can't, assign a value, then he believes that he's unjustified to assign a value either way. He has that belief, right? I believe that I cannot say that it's true, and I believe it. I can't say it's false. So that is a belief, and if we believe that all beliefs have to be justified to be rational, that requires some kind of justification. And I put in the notes here. If you want to follow along with this kind of argument. And by the way, people are actually typing because I'm not really seeing much more. I usually see a lot more people like saying stuff. Let me see if I can fix this real quick.
This needs editing big time, by the way. I know that, but that's why I only picked the first 15 minutes of the video, because that thing is long.
And by the way, I am doing this a little earlier than I thought I was going to do because my meeting got canceled. We're on a day off on our days. Okay, there we go. Now I can actually see it. Okay, so my argument kind of goes like this. Premise one: all beliefs to be rational require justification to be rational. Now, I originally put in excluding properly basic belief, depending on who you ask, and there's still some quandary on that. A properly basic belief is basically a belief that's taken non-inferentially justifiable or non-didactically justifiable, and you take it as a axiomatic assumption, especially as a foundationalist, right? A good example would be that reality is actually real, right? If I say I'm taking it as an axiomatic assumption that the universe exists, a brute fact, okay? As a foundationalist, which is one of my positions, I'm okay with that. I think that all of us have to assume reality is real in some regards, or else we couldn't function. So it's universal. So a properly basic belief has basically five things that is contingent upon. These are famously known as Ozzy's properly basic beliefs requirements. And I'm not going to get into them right here. But for proper basicality, one of them has to be universal. And so my belief that the universe exists qualifies as a properly basic belief. When somebody says like William Lane Craig tries to pull that belief in God is properly basic, then I have to question that because that's not a universal assumption. That doesn't have to be universally assumed in order to function in reality. So I don't think there's proper basicality to that. Now, as far as the justification of properly basic beliefs, I've heard that they cannot be justified. That's how I have always inferred properly basic beliefs to be. They're not justifiable, at least not inferentially. Now, I have talked to a few experts that say this may not be the case. They may be justifiable non-inferentially, but I never really got a good argument for that yet. So I will reserve judgment on that. If you can non-inferentially justify a properly basic belief, let me know. Get back to me on that. I'm really curious on that. I've asked a few people that I trust, and I know they're very good.
Okay, well, I mean, I don't know. This thing goes on for let's say 1 hour and a half more actually of this. So anyway, this is too long. One thing I will say is there's a contradiction there because he says everything that we see is real, but the universe is real. Okay, but if you're doubting everything, then shouldn't you doubt that the universe is not real also? Maybe we live in some kind of simulation or something. But I think it was actually pointed out on the atheist experience. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if we live in a simulation because these are the rules. The rules exist like laws of nature that we know. They exist, and we have to play by the rules, by those rules. It doesn't matter what we imagine other universes or, well, it would have to be another universe, yeah, with maybe a different set of rules. But we don't really have to bother about that at the moment. We'll deal with that when it comes. So that's what I'm saying. Philosophy, there's a lot of things in it which are just thoughts, but I want to see that more applied in the real world situations because otherwise, I can also take a course which was 3 months long. It was very long and quite boring in some parts, to be honest. It's perhaps good for a logic exercise for your brain, but you have to kind of question actually what the wider application of philosophy might be. Honestly, I kind of tend to stick to the basics, but that's just me. I do look at validity, but especially soundness. I look at logical fallacies, of course. That's kind of my number one thing I like about philosophy. Logical fallacies. But the rest, though, unless you're a lawyer or some kind of writer, philosophical writer that has a very niche customer base, I don't really see what we can do with that. So okay, let me see. The video crashed, but just now, so that's okay. I'm just gonna. There's a little gap here. I'm just gonna close that for the ending. All right. Okay, that's it for today's show. I probably could have covered more things, but really, it's just more of the same. And my conclusion is, look, don't overcomplicate your life. There are so many things, so many laws and rules that exist in society already, and you would put even more pressure on yourself if you're really diving deep into philosophy. And sometimes you would just keep thinking and thinking and thinking, and it would just keep going and going without an end product. And for me, the end product is very important. I need stuff to be finished. So I hate when things are open. Anyway, on that note, I just want to remind you that my book is available on Amazon. Please get it, Beyond the Obscure. Nothing to do with the show. It's a psychological horror thriller story. I sent it to a film festival actually, but they reviewed books for some reason. Hope I win something. And please check out my art on Redbubble. I'll try to do a show next week. Probably I will jump back into climate change. So until then. All right, I'm just going to leave it running a couple more minutes on Facebook Live. A little bit longer on YouTube just because it needs to catch up. If you have any questions or things to say, please do comment. Honestly, there's a lot of people out there who do this kind of word salad thing, like I mentioned. It gets views, it gets people to read your stuff, but I just care more about the truth of things. Is your argument actually valid? Is it sound? So if it's not, then I don't know. You're just another thinker, but no more than that. Wow, there's a huge delay on YouTube, by the way. I mean, it's still only at my book right now. Oh, but because it's not quite live here. I should probably click the button. Oh, yeah, okay, now it's okay. All right. Anyway, I want to do more videos, but of course, like I mentioned on the page, it's difficult because, again, if I don't boost my posts, very, very few people read that. Not enough for anything, really. We're talking like less than 100, so that's definitely not enough. And yeah, I'd like to do more shows, of course, but I can't really afford that type of promotion budget. So if people want to help out, it's great. I appreciate the help, but nothing has come so far. So we'll see. I'm still kind of starting in a way. It's true I've been doing the show for 4 years now, but there were big breaks every now and then. Yeah, it's difficult anyway. It's complicated. I don't want to get too much into it. And the funny thing is also, like I said, Facebook melted down a couple of days ago. It was on Wednesday, as far as I know, if I'm not mistaken. And it happened a while ago as well. I don't remember, of course, when. A couple of months ago, maybe. Same thing. Just suddenly, I couldn't like open anything. It wouldn't reload. It would say sorry. There's like some kind of error. But the funny thing is, it happens at precisely the time when I post my show. It happened last time as well. It's like seriously, as soon as I click that button to post, it just completely dies. So I wonder, do I have the power to actually affect Facebook? Do I have the power to kill it? That would be interesting. I would so like to move away from Facebook, by the way, but of course, there's nothing that is even remotely popular to it. So they kind of got us by the nose. I was talking about that the other day, actually. I was bringing up the example of MySpace. MySpace was huge, but it had also huge issues. If you remember, if you're a MySpace user, it was crashing a lot of times. The type of content you could post was quite limited. I don't know, I think you could post pictures, but not more than that. You couldn't promote anything. And that's the failure of MySpace and other similar things is the reason why we have Facebook today. I see that the video is frozen again. I'm just going to restart it here. No big deal. It's already done. I don't know why it does that. Sometimes it's like that. Maybe the multiple screen thing, actually. Maybe that's why. So yeah, it's just kind of interesting to think about it. But now I think, okay, now we have Facebook, we have Twitter. Even though Facebook crashes sometimes and Twitter has its own occasional issue, I don't really see a way how Facebook or Twitter will die. So many people are on it. There is so much business on it. They get caught selling our data to other companies and still nothing happens to them. They can even survive that scandal. So I don't see really what can bring them down. It would need to be a new thing, of course, but I just don't really see what it could be. They're pretty quick in business as well. They bought Instagram, the WhatsApp as well. So they also buy out the competition. So I don't really see what will bring them down at this point in time. Anything can happen, of course, but I just don't see it from a business point of view. Anyway, at this point, I'm gonna stop it on Facebook Live. Thank you for watching. Sorry for the angle. I know it's not a good angle at all, and of course you can't see the things that I'm covering, but hopefully you were able to follow along some of it. And do watch out for the edited version. That's always the, I think, to watch really. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time, next week probably. I'm just gonna try to share it. No, it did it. I clicked something and it went away. So, okay, I actually don't know what happened to it. Let's see. Let's reload it. Oh yeah, it's there. Yeah, it's there. Okay, I'm just gonna leave it running a couple more minutes on YouTube if people have any questions or any comments to say. I mean, I don't claim to be perfect. I don't claim to be all-knowing, but I do know many things. I do try to educate myself whenever I have free time, and I have quite a lot of free time, like I said many times, because I don't have a full-time job. You know, I wrote my book. I do 3D art, although I do some photography as well. But none of that is paying anything actually. So yeah, if you want to be a writer these days, good luck to you, because an independent writer, it's really really tough. My film work, look, it's the same thing. I send my work to film festivals. There are some wins from time to time, which is amazing actually, because my budgets are extremely low. We're talking like $300 or something like that, which is like almost nothing. Okay, obviously, of course, the actors don't get paid. It's all volunteer basis. The only crew people I pay is the makeup artist. I have to pay for that, and usually I cover the transportation fees as well, but nothing else. I mean, I'm competing against movies that sank tens of thousands of dollars into production, and I'm still able to get some wins, and that's incredible, really. It just means that not necessarily the money guides your success. You can have a good idea, you can have a decent promotion campaign for it. Although these days there's not much of it, honestly. Not for indie filmmakers, anyway. But again, if you're an indie filmmaker like myself, I mean, seriously, I would just advise you to do something else in life. And it's not because I don't want more artists in the world. I do. But it's just, well, first of all, there's so many already. You're getting into a field that is super crowded. Just like musicians, there are so many out there. You'll just be one in millions, and they all try to break through. They all try to promote their stuff, and some of them, of course, have money, so that will crush you immediately. And then I don't know. It's difficult anyway. It's really really not simple at all. It's good to do perhaps as a kind of hobby, like a weekend thing. Hey guys, let's get together, let's make a film. But if you're trying to make money 5 days a week, then yeah, you need to do something, and you know, just find something you can do really, until you can send your stuff to film festivals and get big that way, perhaps. Then okay. I'm gonna stop it here for today. So again, thank you for watching. It's sad today there were no comments. I thought there would be some, but anyway, it doesn't matter, because I will just check the comments when the edited version is out. And yeah, that's it for today. I have stuff to do here. I'll get to that, and I'll see you next week. It's almost certain, okay, that I'm gonna talk about something related to climate change again. So anyway, it's interesting. It is boring. Like I said, a lot of people say it's a ratings killer, climate change. But look, I don't care, because we have to deal with it. And whether you don't like it, it really doesn't matter for me at all, because we have to deal with it. So Anyway, enjoy the rest. Well, enjoy your weekend, and I'll see you next week. Okay.